What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Sarah from Sarah Styles here. How do you make sales on PoshMark? I am looking at the data today, looking at the facts to squash all those myths out there, decide what is true, what is working, how the PoshMark algorithm works, and how to make sales on PoshMark. So stay tuned to learn more. Thank you for joining today. If you are new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you like reseller content, I am a reseller on PoshMark and on eBay. I'm also venturing out into other platforms as well, so follow me along on that journey. This channel is for resellers. I focus on data analytics for the reseller. I have analytical dashboards I have for sale on Etsy that help the resellers meet their goals and help you source smarter and not harder. So the links for all of that is down below. Today, though, I did a anonymous survey for Poshers. It was up on my Instagram and on my YouTube for about roughly a month, and it was completely anonymous, and I asked for PoshMark statistics. So I am going to go over the analysis and the results of that data with you guys today. It is super exciting. I'm a total data dork, so I am of course excited, but it's really interesting because a lot of things that are being said out there on what to do to make sales, the data is not necessarily supporting that. So let's dive into that. I do want to note that I use Google Sheets for the analysis, so it is not a robust analysis. I don't have statistical modeling software. When I was working in, corporate America, I had all of these like really expensive software programs. I don't have that. So it is not a super robust model. However, I am comfortable sharing the information with you, and I am comfortable changing some of my practices based off of it as well. So just keep that in mind, though, that it is just a quick little analysis that I did in Google Sheets. Three things that I looked at. I looked at the population of the data. So what types of people filled out this survey? What can that tell us? And then also just to make sure that the data that I had was varied and I felt like it was telling a good story. If it was all like one kind of posture, then it may be swayed a little bit. And so we'll get more into that a little bit, but I looked at the population, kind of what our posture is doing on PoshMark. And then I looked at the correlation. What is driving sales? What activities that you're doing on PoshMark are actually driving your sales? This one is really interesting. It's all really interesting, but it's really interesting to see what metrics, because there's so many things that PoshMark is like, you have to do this. Which ones are actually worth doing and worth your time? And then I also looked at the top 10% revenue earners from the sample data. And that was kind of telling us, it'll tell us what are these top earners doing that we can strive to do. So let's dive into the data. I'm going to pull the data. This is the population data. I went through and looked at what type of sample am I looking at. Again, like I said, it's not robust, so I wasn't able to validate the sample, but in looking at the sample data, I do feel comfortable that I have a fairly wide variety of postures. So average sale price, this was interesting to me. I do have notes to make sure I have all the stats right. I can't do quick math in my head. Population, so 73% are $20 and under. So you're talking, quick flips, small brands, more of a quantity type seller if they're a full-time reseller. 5% is 35% or more. So that speaks to either the type of marketing that PoshMark is doing. They are more of a part-time reseller app, or clean out your closet, which makes sense when you see the PoshMark commercials, right? Like clean out your closet, you can make some extra bucks here and there. So it makes sense that the average sale price is a bit lower on that. Active listings. So you're looking at, you can see, the majority of the postures that we're looking at are between 100 and 400. 42% are under 300 active listings, while less than 10% have more than 700 items listed. So something to keep in mind here, I did not take into account time. I did not ask for that metrics, because the only indicator of time that you have in PoshMark is when you downloaded the app. It does not necessarily mean when you started selling or whatnot. So I didn't want that to sway the data, so I did not take time into factor at all. So I would guess that a lot of people that have been selling for longer have a larger closet. However, I'm in the $700 range, and I've only been reselling for about a year. So keep that in mind. New relistings a day. So how many days a week are people listing? And this is something that in the community you have to list every single day, right? So we'll get into how that correlates to sales in a minute. But how this is kind of telling you how active people are on Poshmark from the sample that I took. And so, you know, there's a pretty good variety. Most people, only 2% of people are not listing every day. 8% are listing one day a week. But then you're getting, you know, these would be kind of your part-time sellers is what I'm thinking, 2 to 4 days a week. These are your balls to the wall full-time resellers. They are listing every business day and then every single day on that. Closet shares a day. So I wanted to take out and kind of normalize the data a little bit, and how often are you sharing your closet? Because if you have a lot of items, then your item shares are going to be higher. Because even if you share your closet one time a day, but you have, you know, 1,400 items, you know, so I wanted to kind of take that out a little bit, right? So 13% of people are not sharing their closet, 0 or 1 times. The majority of people are sharing their closet 2 to 3 times a day, 54%. And then you have, you know, kind of your straggler people, less percent over here that are sharing their closet more times a day. I will note, most likely these people over here are either people who have a VA or people who have smaller closets and, you know, can share their closet fairly quickly. If you have 1,400 items and you're sharing 7 times a day, that is all that you're doing with your day. Unless you have a VA, right? Days shipped. This is just interesting because it's looking at the quality of service on Poshmark from the sample that I took. So you are looking at, 90% of people are shipping 1 day or less. If you are a Posher and you are getting bad reviews or you're getting cases open, make sure to look at your days shipped, because this is your competition. People who are shopping on Poshmark are expecting 0 to 1 days. And then in e-commerce in general, I mean, Amazon is, you know, you get it like that afternoon is one of their options. eBay is also big on shipping quickly. So that's something to consider when you're looking at that. Things that I want to note on for the population, I feel comfortable with the sample data. Like I said, this is not a robust data analysis because I don't have robust software, but based off of the sample that we're looking at, I feel like there's a variance in data between like part-time, full-time resellers. I will note that the people that filled out my survey are likely have some kind of investment in Poshmark because they are following me on Instagram and or on YouTube, so they are watching resellers and involved in the community. So this is likely not taking into account people who are cleaning out their closet and kind of just doing it as a side hobby. Now let's look at the correlation. Let me make sure I touched on everything. Yes. Okay, let's look at correlation. Before we start looking at it, I do want to note, just to take you into your statistics class in high school or college if you took it, when you're looking at correlation does not equal causation. That is like a huge saying for statistics. Essentially, it means even if you had perfect correlation, it does not mean that it is absolutely the only factor in your model. There could be other outside factors that are playing into what you're looking at, but it is something to consider and something that kind of helps you look at your data and kind of build a bigger picture. Time, again, is not a factor. I don't know how time would have factored into this, but I do believe that if I had a true picture of time, that it would have had some kind of factor in looking at the data. But I do not have that as a metric. So just keep that in mind when we're looking at the data. And then when you are looking at, let me pull one up. When you are looking at these graphs, you want your R squared to be as close to 1. That is telling you that you have a better correlation. So that being said, the correlation in these, none of them were great. None of them were like 1, but that does not surprise me because I am only looking at a singular variable model. I don't have robust software to look at multivariable models and a lot of variables that I couldn't play because Poshmark doesn't give us the statistics and all of that. So that's not so surprising to me. But to make this information useful, I separated it into a weak category and then into a stronger category. So we can kind of get an idea of what is playing into sales. Shipping days does not have any indication of sales. You can see the trend line right here. If this were going to be good, you would want all of these dots to be, you know, on that trend line, and they're not. And then again, your R squared up here is not great. But that makes sense. You know, shipping days don't necessarily mean you're getting more sales. Daily listings. So this one is really interesting to me, and I'm gonna actually, if I can look at both of these together, yeah. So daily listings and then days a week you're listing. So how many times you're listing, how many listings you're doing a day, and then how many days of the week you're listing. These are 2 things. So this is not in the Poshmark stats. This is something I asked externally if people tracked it. So not everybody answered this question because not everybody tracks it. But for the people who did track it, the statistics on those, the R squared on those are awful. Like they're terrible. And you can see like they're all like, especially this one, they're all over the place, so this is one of the myths, like listing every single day, listing every single day does not necessarily mean that you're going to get sales. I'm going to dig a bit deeper into this and tell you what I think. I do think listing is important because if you do not have items listed, you cannot sell them, like, period. If you have 0 items listed, you're making 0 sales. End of the day, end of the story. Like, that's an easy statistic. But just because you are listing does not mean that you are making sales. So now let's look a little bit into the stronger category. Like I said, these are not fantastic models, but they are stronger than the weak. And I feel comfortable looking at the data, kind of messing with my practices to see how it turns out for me. And this is where I'm going to tell you, I think it's very important in anything that you do is take what you're learning, look at what people are saying, and then use it and see how it works for you. So I'm already starting to change some of my practices on Poshmark based off of this, but I'm going to come back in a month, in 2 months, in 3 months, and look at how it's working for me. So I really want to touch on that as well. So these are the stronger ones. I looked at total shares. So we're over here now, right? Total shares versus sales. I did look at all, because you can share self shares, community shares, new people shares. There's quite a few different metrics in Poshmark that you can look at. And when I looked at them all individually, none of them were actually really that great. Some of them were better than others, but none of them were great. However, when I put all of the shares together, I got the best model, which is the one that you're looking at here. Which is interesting because self-shares are important. You have to do self-shares to get to the top of your closet. That's just how the Poshmark algorithm works. To hit the top of the search, you have to share it. So that's a given. But this correlation there was not as strong as I had thought it would be. Another interesting fact is you can see, so this is the trend line here, and down in through here, you're seeing really heavily concentrated around the trend line. And then as you get higher in your shares and higher in your sales, it kind of goes away from the trend, right? And so that is telling me that your shares kind of have a limitation, right? So doing this 800,000 shares does not necessarily mean that you're going to make more sales. And I'll get into, at the end of this video, I'm going to make my recommendations based off of the data, but I think there is kind of a limitation on what types of activities you're doing. The more shares you do aren't necessarily going to bring more sales. Let's look at followers. Followers, this is the best, so far this is the best R squared. Again, it's not great, but it is the best, it's the strongest of all of the ones that we're looking at is followers, which is interesting to me because I'm like, I don't know, do followers really matter? Again, you see this heavily concentration down here, under 200,000 followers, likely, 150-ish, 100,000 followers. So if you're new on Poshmark, followers, like you want to get the followers. And then when you're going up, here in 800,000 followers, it's not necessarily meaning that you're getting more sales, because there is a whole bunch of things that kind of go into getting sales. So total shares, available listings. Did I look at that? Available listings. So this goes into listing every day, listing multiple items a day. If you're not listing quality items, you're not making sales. If you're not listing items that have good SEOs or good pictures or whatever, like you're still not going to make sales, even if you're doing that one piece of the puzzle. So again, you can see the heavy concentration here towards the lower number of active listings. Just because you have a ton of listings here does not mean that you are making boogo buck sales. And so something that this points out, and I did quickly make a it's a Google Sheets model. Just keep that in mind. But I did just quickly put the three of them together. Total shares, followers, and listings. Doing the three of these together gave us the best model. Again, it is not one. It is not a statistically sound model by any means, but of everything that we looked at, it is the best model. And I do feel comfortable saying, based off of things that we've read, based of things that we know, and looking at the data, I feel comfortable saying your total shares, followers, and listings are the most important things to be doing on Poshmark. And I'm going to go one step further in saying, you see this cluster down here. So only doing shares and doing, 800,000 shares a month, that's not going to bring you more sales. You need to distribute your time between listing, between followers, and between total shares. I'm going to note again on listings, I think quality listings is what's important. Listing just to list is not going to make you more sales. Listing things that people want, that will help make more sales. But doing followers and then also sharing, not just your closet, but sharing other community shares, new people shares as well. I'm going to note too, just because I love my girl, Lynn, I don't know if you know of the 30mm, but she has come up with a 30mm, and it is essentially saying this. Doing a little bit of all three of these things every single day is going to help you get sales. I am also going to do a little plug for Lynn really quick, because she lives here in Colorado. She is so helpful in the Poshmark community. She is going through breast cancer right now, and she is a sole caregiver for her daughter. I mean, she's married, but she takes care, she stays at home to resell, to be with her daughter. And it's a very trying time for her. So I do have a GoFundMe down below for her if you would like to give to that. I know that she would greatly appreciate it. So let me make sure that I covered everything there. Yes. That's it. Okay, so now that we looked at all this, we looked at the population data, and then we looked at what helps you make sales. Now I want to look at our top earners. What are our top earners doing better? Oh, and this is actually cutting out. Can I move that? Yeah, I cut it off. So this over here on the left is our top 10% earners from the sample. And then this over here on the right is the general population. Again, time is not a factor here. So if you've been slowly, steadily selling for 10 years, you likely are going to have more revenue. Not always the case, but likely have more revenue. So keep that in mind. That's not a factor. But what are these top 10% earners doing differently than the population that I looked at? And look at this. You're no 0 or 10 or 5 or $10 sales, very few $15 average sale price. Most of the top sellers are doing this higher average sale price. And 20 to 25 is where most of them are. So I wouldn't say that they're doing like luxury brand, but they are either have better availability for sourcing, or they know their brands better and know what to pick up and know how to list it. But you can see over here, you're getting that where the general population, you had a bit more, was more $10, $20 and under. Active listings. How many listings do these top 10% earners have? The majority of them are between $400 and $500 $400 and $500 active listings. Let me make sure. Yes, so 85% of them have 400 listings or more. Like I said, it does not equate to more listings does not equal more sales. However, they likely have better, based off of their average sale price, they have better quality listings as well. That is helping them to have more revenue. So you can see this is the distribution of active listings of the top 10 versus the general population, where the general population is more towards these lower range, and this is more in the 400 to 900 range. I do think it's interesting because there is a lot of talk out there about once you hit, 500, you get a bump in sales, and once you hit, and you're not necessarily seeing that. 700 seems to be, a bump in sales. Not necessarily a bump in sales, but a lot of people have 700 listings. And then you have this one, a couple people out here at 8% at 1,500. So new relistings a day. How many days a week are they listing? So they're active, right? They're on the app all the time. I mean, most people are on, 23% of people are on every single day. 5 to 7 days a week, you're talking, did I put that stat down? 92% are on relisting 3+ days a week. You probably 5 to 7 days, you're looking at roughly like 20 plus, 60-ish, slightly over 60% of the top earners are listing 5 to 7 days a week. Again, quality listings. Listing just to list is not necessarily equate to more sales. Closet shares. How frequently are they sharing their closet? So, you can see they are definitely more active than our general population is over here. They're sharing more. And then followers. Let's look at their followers. Excuse me. They have more followers, right? And based off of the correlation, it makes sense. They're doing those daily activities, they're listing, they're doing their followers, they have active listings out there, they're sharing their closet, and they're doing a distribution of all of them. There's definitely have more followers. Again, time is a factor here. So we don't necessarily know, are they making more money just because they've been on longer and they have more followers? But you can't have more followers unless you're actively doing it every single day, right? So you cannot get up to 900,000 followers if you are not on the app active, right? You can't do that in one day. It's just not possible. PoshMark would actually shut you down if you tried to. So there is that. Right, so that is the data. What does it all mean? What are my recommendations based off of it? So, split your activity. I have an itch. Split your activity between sharing, followers, and listing. But sharing, the most important is your self shares, but there's a max. Don't share your closet 15 times a day. Maybe do 2 or 3 times, 4 times maybe a day. Do that consistently for a couple of weeks or for a couple of months and see how it does for you. Like I said, everybody is going to work a little bit differently. So definitely I recommend looking at your data and how these recommendations are going to work for you. I know I will be doing it for myself, changing some of my practices and seeing how it works for me. But share your closet a couple times a day and then go on to other shares. Share in the community, share in the new people, all of the different types of shares that you can do on Poshmark. It's not mind-blowing that you have to kind of do these different activities because Poshmark is a social app. However, I do think that it is important to look at the data, and it was important for me to see the facts and to see what is actually driving sales and what actually matters that you're doing. So split your activity, self-share, sharing, listing. But listing just to list does not equate to sales. So if you are going to list, make sure that you are listing quality items, that you are listing items that you want to share over and over and over again, and that are going to bring you that revenue. That's where I will be using my inventory dashboard to look at what is working for me, so that the inventory that I am purchasing and that I am listing are items that are selling for me and selling at a price point that I want to be selling at. Followers and community shares are also the third piece of that puzzle that you should be doing to increase your sales, to get sales, and to increase your sales on Poshmark. It's a social app. You need to be doing all of the things, not just listing, not just followers, not, it needs to be kind of a distribution of the activities. Consistency. We notice in the top earners, they are on the app, they are listing, and then they may have better opportunity to sourcing, but the chance that all of the people that are top earners have better sourcing options are not necessarily probably the case, but they are probably better at sourcing. They know what works for them. They might have a niche. They've been doing it for a while. They watch lots of YouTube videos. They are learning. Their average sale price is higher, which leads me to believe that they are selling higher, better quality items. That being said, you can still make money on those lower price mall brands if you are a quantity seller. So there were a couple of people in there that are quantity sellers that are still a high revenue earner. My personal takeaway, to be honest, is I'm going to look at other platforms. I am starting, if you watch my channel, I am working on increasing my average sale price, and I am wondering if I am kind of pricing myself out of Poshmark, or if some of these higher price items might be better on, the Real or Tradesies, or these higher, more luxury type places that are marketing strictly to that. So that's something kind of that sparked my interest. Make sure to subscribe and follow my videos to see how that works out. That's something that I'm going to be doing. It's a marathon. It is not a sprint. So I know it's hard to do that, and you want to do all the things all the time. Slow and steady wins the race. Just keep doing, these different things every single day, or, if you're part-time, the days that you can, and you will be making those sales. I want to stress, you have to have quality items that people want to purchase and that people can find. So you do need to know your SEOs and know, pictures and how to do listings and stuff as well. That is it for me. Yep, that's all that I had for this. I was super excited to do this analysis, and I want to thank every single person that filled out that anonymous survey for me. It was very helpful, and I hope that this video is helpful for you as well, to help you figure out how to make sales on Poshmark. And kind of, for me, it was like some of the things were things that I knew, but seeing it was like, oh, okay, like maybe I should start doing followers again, because I kind of fell off that bandwagon for a while. So I am starting to put some of these things into practice. Make sure to follow me to see how it goes on my monthly month-end videos, where I go through my dashboards and show you what's sold and how my data is looking. So make sure to subscribe, hit that little bell, give a thumbs up if you like content like this. I am always available to ask questions. Either leave them down in the comments below or hit me up on Instagram. Have a good day.